Hello, everyone. Bladen Breitreiter. I'm an incident meteorologist from the National Weather Service in El Paso, Santa Teresa, here to give you a weather update for today, Wednesday, July 16th. So, we got isolated to scattered storms up and around our area, and a lot of that has to do with what you're seeing here. This is called simple water vapor imagery, and it's basically looking at water vapor at all levels of the atmosphere. And so we can see our monsoonal plume, which was previously very vertical over the state of New Mexico, is now starting to kind of lean over and take over a good portion of Arizona into Colorado, and then curl back around and start to get into our neck of the woods here in northern New Mexico. This is also partially responsible for some of the smoke that we're seeing in and around this area. So a lot of the smoke that we're seeing kind of in this portion of northwest and north central New Mexico is due in part to this fire here at the Laguna fire, but also due in part to some of the fires across Arizona and across Colorado basically being funneled down into this portion of the state. So as we go into the rest of the day, we already have that isolated to scattered thunderstorm development in and around a good portion of our north central mountains out here. The majority of this is not dropping a whole lot of rainfall. These are all very weak. They're kind of coming up and falling right back down. And what that is creating is less rainfall and more just gusty, erratic winds. And with that is also coming wind shifts. So all of that is actually very dangerous when it comes to how it interacts in the interface where there is fire. So we're actually looking a bit drier today. The way that this kind of works, you can kind of see that we have a whole bunch of different colors in and around all of this. The greens that we see through here is upper level water vapor. And then as we get into this area here, we got a lot of water vapor at all levels. And so we kind of get over into our neck of the woods. You don't see a whole lot of that saturation until we start to see some of those cells pop up. And so we've had a pretty dry day. Yesterday, our relative humidity got down below 15%. That is considered critical in this area. We saw very similar relative humidity today. So while we do have moisture snaking around and getting into the area, conditions down at the ground are still incredibly dry, especially for mid-July. So as we go into tomorrow, we're going to see this particular feature here start to curl and actually set itself up a little bit better over New Mexico. It's going to bring our moisture up a bit, not historic values of moisture by any means, but it will be enough moisture to add an increase in coverage for those showers and thunderstorms as we go into the day on Thursday. Majority of that is still going to favor the high terrain, just as we see it often do during monsoon season, but it'll have more potential to kind of drift and expand out to more of the highlands and the lowlands as we get into the afternoon hours. So we're looking at anywhere from scattered to numerous storms tomorrow. We might see wetting rainfall here at the fire. Wetting rainfall in the desert southwest is generally defined at greater than 1/10 of an inch. And that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when it comes to this neck of the woods in this country, that's actually a good help to a lot of the vegetation and the fuels out there. So we're looking at around a 70% chance or probability that we'll hit that 1/10 of an inch somewhere on the fire perimeter as we go into tomorrow afternoon. Now, what happens beyond tomorrow afternoon? We'll take a look at the matrix here. This is a planning forecast. It's a living document, so it changes throughout the day. But it'll give us a really good idea of kind of what we want to expect. And when we're dealing with fire weather, it is all about the trends. So we have Thursday where we see this increased coverage of storms. We see our probability. We like to look at that as probability of lightning because that has the greatest impact to both crew safety and also to the potential for initial attack, new starts. Anytime we see see lightning going into receptive fuel beds. That's when we start to get a little nervous. So we express that here in a percentage so that they're able to plan accordingly. So I have a 60%, which is also pretty much what I'm expecting for probability of just general precipitation. But then as you go down here, you'll see I have a 24-hour rainfall probability, and that's where we get that 1/10 of an inch. We get a little bit lesser of a chance when we try to think of maybe up to 1/4 of an inch. That's more like 30%. 1/2 an inch goes down even further, 5%. Chance of 1 inch down to 1%. Now, the caveat, as everyone who is from this area is aware, when it comes to the monsoon, it's all about that one storm that sets up in the right place or the wrong place, and that could throw a lot of this game out of the water. So if we were to get a very robust storm over this area tomorrow, then that would track us a little bit closer into that 1/4 and 1/2 inch range. But that's why those probabilities are there, and that's why they are the way they are. So we kind of try to plan based on that. We'll see similar conditions into Friday and a little bit into Saturday. A little bit less moisture is in place. We're not seeing quite the lift that we need for these storms. Thunderstorms need 3 things. They need instability, so rising air. They need lift to kind of get them going. And then, of course, they need moisture. So we're seeing degrading conditions as we go into Friday and Saturday, but still relatively decent, 50% across both of those days. As we go into Sunday through Tuesday, that's when things change. So we start to talk about the monsoon. It's always challenging to figure out when it's going to start and then when it's going to take its break. We're starting to look at that potential as we go into the latter portion of July. We're seeing a pretty decent signal that the monsoon is going to start to taper off. We're going to see more drying conditions, more higher temperatures as ridge of high pressure starts to set back over us towards the end of July and into early August. So we get a good 2-3 days here, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, basically to close out the week as far as precip goes for majority of northern and central New Mexico. But then as we get into next week, those chances are really going to start trending away, and we start to see the recurrence of more elevated to critical fire weather. And why that is defined by getting those minimum relative humidity values down towards that 15% and starting to get our winds a little bit elevated. They're not the type of winds that we would see in the springtime. Those are very, very extreme, but they're still elevated. So 12 gust 22 is still going to have some impacts across the fire as far as what they're able to do and how they're able to get their work done. So a very, very black and white sort of picture here with very probable precip chances in and around the fire Thursday through Saturday. Drying trend really starting to take hold Sunday through Tuesday, and then moving forward, looking to see how the monsoon is going to shape up. Is it going to take a break? And the signaling is starting to look more like, yes, similar to last year, had a really good rambunctious start to it, and then as we got into late July, early August, it started to taper off. So it's a very similar signal to what we saw back in 2024. So with all of that, this concludes your weather update. I hope you all have a great day.